Today on Katie. Could a man in your life have breast cancer?
You were just 24 years old when you heard those words, you have breast cancer.
The warning signs and symptoms, plus expert advice on getting your guy to see a doctor.
How much influence do we actually have?
Then, from Studio One in New York, it's Katie.
So nice to see you all. Thank you for coming. I'm still fighting a bit of a cold, so I'm not going to kiss you today, even though I want to. Anyway, we have a great show for you, and we're starting with a big conversation everyone needs to have. It's so important. They need to have it with their fathers, brothers, husbands, and sons. It's not a phrase most men would ever expect to hear. You have breast cancer. But the ones you see behind me, in fact, did hear it. And more than 2,000 men last year heard those terrifying 4 words. So many people don't even know that men can get breast cancer. We're going to talk about who's at risk and what to look for. It could mean the difference between life and death for someone you love. Last year alone, breast cancer claimed the lives of over 400 men. But the disease doesn't have to be fatal. When it's caught in the early stages, the survival rate is over 90%. But the misconception that the disease only affects women can leave men with breast cancer feeling embarrassed and isolated. In turn, men often don't report breast cancer symptoms until the disease is in the later stages, when the survival rate plummets to just 1 in 5. Actor Richard Roundtree could have been in that unlucky group. The suave star of the iconic 1971 film Shaft was shocked when he was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1993. Today, he's working hard to raise awareness of the disease, but there's still a long way to go. Another person who thought it could never happen to him is Bret Miller.
When I was 24, the lump that I had on my chest for a while had started to hurt. And so I went to the doctor and I told him that it was now hurting, and I had this discharge out of my nipple if I squeezed it. He said we need to get checked out, and he ultimately sent me to a women's clinic. Going to the women's clinic was an interesting experience in itself. I get the ultrasound there. They also give me a mammogram. And between those 2 scans, I was starting to get a little worried. I was like, mammograms, women get to make sure that they don't have any lumps for breast cancer. So what is this doctor thinking or knowing that I don't know? After having the ultrasound and the mammogram, my surgeon wanted to remove the lump immediately just as a precaution. I thought that all my trouble was over because the lump had been removed, but it was actually just beginning. The day after I had the lump removed, I was at work just, trying to get my day started, and the doctor called me and told me the words that changed my life forever. You have breast cancer.
Please welcome Bret Miller, actor Richard Roundtree, and Dr. Clifford Hudis, Chief of Memorial Sloan Kettering's Breast Cancer Medicine Service. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. So, gosh, Bret, you were just 24 years old when you heard those words, you have breast cancer. You must have been stunned. Tell me what that was like.
Well, yeah, I got the call from the doctor. I actually thought he was joking. I thought I was getting punked. I thought cameras were going to come out and everything. But I wasn't too nervous, too scared at the time, because this is the day after the lump was removed. So I was thinking, oh, the lump's all removed, so I'm good to go. This isn't going to be as bad as it could be. I didn't know everything that was to follow, though.
So tell us what did follow. You had a lumpectomy initially, right?
Yeah.
And then how was your breast cancer treated?
They followed up. I did a mastectomy on the right breast. I did 4 rounds of chemo following that over a couple months, and now I am taking a pill a day for hormonal therapy for 5 years, and I'm about halfway through that now.
Now, did you have reconstructive surgery?
No, I actually did meet with the plastic surgeon at the time, and he told me some options and everything. He had never done anything for a male yet, so after hearing that and thinking about it a little more,
I decided, I'm not doing anything. This is my battle scar. This is who I am now.
And what about insurance? Because I understand you did have some problems with your insurance company covering the cost of your surgery.
Yeah, there was problems throughout the entire way because they always considered everything that they addressed me with was a Mrs. Bret Miller. But it was the first surgery for removing the lump. The doctor had submitted it, and the insurance company denied it at first because being 24, a male, and having a lump removed from my chest, they didn't think it was necessary.
Richard, when did you discover you had breast cancer? That was quite a while ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're talking about plastic surgery. It didn't exist back in '93. But I was in Costa Rica working, and just in the course of showering, I discovered this little lump the size of a pencil eraser head. The following week, we finished work, and I come back to Los Angeles, and I went to my doctor, and he knew I was somewhat of a hypochondriac. He said, "Oh, Richard, it's nothing, but while you're here, let's stick a needle in there and take a biopsy and check it out." A couple of days later, he calls me up. He says, "Richard, we need to talk." That was a flag.
And then he told you?
I came into the office, and he sat me down and he said, "Richard, you have breast cancer." I heard cancer. And then he said, wait a minute, you said breast cancer? Yes. He said, "You questioning my manhood or what? Breast cancer? How could I have breast cancer?" He said, "Well, in my, I think he said something like 40 years of practice, you're like the second or third experience with it, but you do have breast cancer." And he explained all of the procedures that
And you had a mastectomy as well, Richard?
Oh, yeah, and 6 months of chemotherapy.
You kept this a secret for a long time, and then you decided to go public with it.
That was very interesting. I used to do a lot of the celebrity golf tournaments in North Carolina, and this particular year they were raising money for a unit to go out in the community to test and mammograms and what have you. And I said, "Well, that's fantastic because, outside of the cities, people don't have access to testing and whatnot. That's great." As a breast cancer survivor, and the room turned around and looked at me, "What?" I said, "Oh, yes, I'm going through. I was still going through it at that point." And I looked at that and said, "You know what? This is an opportunity. People are not aware of this. And breast cancer is not gender specific. And you got to get the word out." And that's how this all happened.
And Dr. Hudis, I imagine there's still a big stigma surrounding a male with breast cancer because it isn't all that common. So that's something that you have to deal with as a physician, isn't it?
Well, it definitely is, and a lot of people bring a lot of preconceived notions and baggage into this discussion, but I think usually we're able to work through that pretty quickly and focus on the problem at hand so that this doesn't get in the way.
How are men treated differently than women? And I was wondering, some people would have a prophylactic mastectomy if they had breast cancer in one breast. Does that happen with men as well?
It does happen in men, but part of it is because in men there's a higher chance that they have an inherited predisposition to developing breast cancer, a mutated gene. And when you have that gene, it's common to do a prophylactic, or we say risk-reducing mastectomy on the opposite side.
And women get mammograms. So for men, I feel like you guys, there's no way to monitor breast cancer in men. So what should men do? Should they give themselves breast self-exams?
Yeah, there are about 2,200 diagnosed men a year with breast cancer, so it's not a very common disease compared to over 200,000 women. And the number of deaths per year, thankfully, is very low. It's in the hundreds. So that's the reason that mammography wouldn't really be effective for men, because we would be doing literally millions and millions of them just to find a couple of cancers and lots of false alarms. Having said all that, everybody should be self-aware, and the way you've described finding the lump is really very typical. And if you see a change, just don't ignore it. Please, everybody should just bring it to their doctor's attention.
Meanwhile, you both are now doing well. You're healthy. Richard, you're back working. You have a show on BET now, is that right?
Being Mary Jane, yes.
And you play Gabrielle Union's dad?
Yes.
And how do you feel? I mean, what has it meant for you, Richard, to be able to be public and talk about this in public forums?
It's a badge, and I wear it with honor. And when I see my fellow survivors, is that there's an automatic union between us. Of course, we've been through the same battles. And getting the word out, early detection can save your life, is a mantra that I scream out.
Well, good for you. And thank you both for talking about your personal situations. And when we come back, could someone you know be at risk for male breast cancer? We're going to tell you what to look for and what you need to know. That's right after this.
Man featured on a national talk show, the life-saving message he wants every man to hear. A Prairie Village man is believed to have had the youngest ever documented case of male breast cancer. And now he is making it his life's goal to raise awareness. KBC 9's Haley Harrison says Bret Miller's story got a national audience today on The Katie Show.
So much for being here.
It was a message for husbands, fathers, and sons.
You were just 24 years old when you heard those words, you have breast cancer. You must have been stunned. Tell me what that was like.
Well, yeah, I got the call from the doctor. I actually thought he was joking. Yeah, I thought I was getting punked. Visitation.
There have been a lot of milestones since then for Bret Miller and his family.
It was the first surgery.
And Monday's appearance on Katie was one of them.
Now the whole world will be able to hear my story.
He first felt the lump at 17.
He looked at his dad and I and said, "Hey, I found this lump under my right nipple. What do you think it is?"
Marks on here.
Miller got the answer 7 years later. It was ductal carcinoma. In 2010, we were there as he underwent surgery on his right breast.
How are you? Are you good?
Now 28, Miller has become an advocate for awareness about this rare form of breast cancer.
All my friends, I mean, they joke about it, but I know they're serious at the same time. They're like, I'm touching myself right now, you know?
The American Cancer Society estimates 2,300 men will get the diagnosis this year. The Millers tell me men and women should be performing self-checks.
None of us like to go to the doctor. But bottom line is, if you find something and you do nothing about it, it will take your life.
Just because you're a male doesn't mean that you can't get breast cancer.
In Prairie Village, Haley Harrison, KMBC 9 News.
Breast cancer is 100 times less common among men than in women. You can find links to the Miller's Foundation at KMBC.com.